This is Jeff Gomez, Marketing Director at UpNest. Today, I'll be talking with Jim Holbrook, a top UpNest real estate agent in Southern California. All right, well, let's start with a little introduction. Can you tell me a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my name's Jim Holbrook. I'm the owner and broker of Performance Realty Estates and Homes. Been a broker since 2008. Started my real estate career in 2005 and sell over 100 homes a year. And been doing this long enough to know that we have a really good process at our brokerage. And that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, tell me a bit about that process. What makes that process different from what other brokerages offer?
So I'm the listing agent, and I have 5 buyer agents that work for me. So I'm completely committed to my sellers, and the
Hmm.
buyer agents are completely committed to the buyers. And that helps our process overall because we all have a few things that we do well. It's really, really tough to be a listing agent and then go ahead and, you know, uh, expect to take out 2 or 3 groups of buyers on a weekend, get pre-quals, get a DU from the lender, do all these things that are really time consuming, and then expect to market, negotiate, and oversee all the transactional details for a seller. It's just really tough to do it.
Hmm.
And you're spread pretty thin doing it. Once we get into escrow, the seller or buyer, we have a transaction coordinator that takes care of all the paperwork once we get into escrow. And we have a full-time admin as well to make sure that that process, all the little details of it, that we don't drop the ball. And of course, we're available 24/7. We always answer the phone. And one of the biggest things that I'm proud of is we don't want people to feel like they can never ask a question at any time during the process. We want to educate both buyers and sellers in a way that would allow them to really understand things as we do. And I think we do a good job at that. And that's part of our biggest, I think, caveat difference between us and other agents is our process. And that is our process.
That makes sense. And it sounds like there's a finely tuned team where everyone's working on something slightly different. Um, how did you build to that? Like, what did your journey look like to get to this point?
A rough journey, actually, Jeff, for sure. There's no easy way. I started flipping homes back in early 2000, and I had a corporate job.
Mhm.
And I just said, gosh, I was at my corporate job for 9 years, and I just thought to myself, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And it
Mhm.
was a Fortune 500 company based out of Northbrook, Illinois. And I just said, no, I don't want to do this. Travel, be a district manager, area manager, all that stuff. It was a lot. And I thought, real estate, I really love. So I had a passion for it to begin with. And by flipping homes, seeing the flexibility that that life could give you as well, made me want to go into real estate. And I got my license back in 2005 and had the corporate job for a year or so and then became a buyer agent. Because that's the first thing you do is you take out buyers to see homes and you hope that they like one and get into escrow and do a good job and people refer you. I mean, I
Mhm.
think that's the key to the first part of your real estate career. But
Mhm.
I had a few actually, I think that I had a good mentor and I think that's key too. I think understanding that you don't know it all, because a lot of people expect you to know it all right off the bat and you don't. You need someone to help you hold your hand. And I had a few good people in my corner to do that and then getting off, having some transactions under my belt um, over the years, and then trying to go to that next step, which I think is really becoming a listing agent. So typically, buyers when they start are agents when they start as a buyer agent, and you work yourself up into a listing agent, which is what I am today. And after that, um, just understanding the loan side, I think, is important as well. Keep educating yourself on what's the newest and greatest thing that's going on both in your market and in your industry.
Mhm.
So it kind of got started there in a way that I think that led itself to where I am today. But it is a process, and everybody wants it done yesterday, wants to be a hero, and do these great things right off the bat, and that's great. But it's a hard road. I've been doing this almost 17 years, and I
Mhm.
can tell you from my experience that It really is a process. It's your journey. But I think the core values that you have to begin with and why you're doing this really help you in the end game to understand everything as it comes together. What I mean by that is you have to have passion for it. You got to have dependability. You got to have honesty, commitment, and you got to be efficient in your work. And all those things come together over time.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems like every agent who I talk to has a different answer for how they got into becoming a real estate agent. It seems like you can come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Um, and I know a lot of people try it and then burn out. Uh, is there any reason that somebody shouldn't try becoming a real estate agent?
Well, I think if you're just in it for the money, you're going to fail. A lot of
Hmm.
people think they want to get into real estate. Oh, I'm going to try real estate. Anybody can do it. Well, there's
Yeah.
a big difference between real estate agents, what they do, and what they charge. That's just the bottom line. And I think that if you're getting into it for the money, I don't think you should do it because
Hmm.
I think you got to really love it.
Yeah.
And just like any job, like Jeff, your job, you do your job because you like your job. I'm assuming everybody gets into a career because they love their job and what they do every day.
Hmm.
And the money will come if you do a great job and you have referrals and you're communicative. I can't even say the word communicative
You got it.
with
Yeah.
clients and all the core values I think that are the pillar of you as a person and what you stand for. Because at the end of the day, people really just want help. I mean, imagine stepping into your job and me stepping into your job and doing it every day. I would have no clue. So I think being an educator is really one of the key things we can do as real estate agents, brokers, is to make sure that we get on a level that, hey, this is my first time buying. What am I doing? This is
Hmm.
my first time selling a home. Take me through the process and all the bumps that we're going to run into. I always tell people we're like on a flight, Jeff, from LA to New York. Will there be turbulence in this transaction? Absolutely. Where will it be? I have no idea.
Hmm. Yeah.
So with that, you kind of set the table of the expectation of people, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, home buying and home selling, it's such a complicated process and such an important one. I mean, the most important purchase or sale in a lot of people's lives. Uh, you must get like a wide range of knowledge and expertise from your clients about how much they know about the process. How do you communicate to people who really don't know anything about it and make them feel confident and secure in what they're doing?
Taking them through every step of the process. So,
Mm,
for example, when I do a listing appointment, I take them through all the key people that we're going to be dealing with. One, how we're going to market exactly, because there's different silos of marketing. You have Zillow, you have Redfin, you have MLS, you have target marketing, you have certain things that we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And then we get into negotiating. How are we going to negotiate your best price on your home? How are we going to do that? How's this all going to make sense to them? And I kind of really do a good job of making sure they understand the counters, what they look like, what you're expecting when you get a DocuSign. What's that DocuSign going to say? How's it going to, we're going to go from a price to contingencies to all the things that are important in making this an easy process. And so I really, those three things are my big thing: is marketing, negotiating, overseeing all the transactional details. Who's actually looking at these details and what are those details? Escrow, title, educating them on what those things are and making sure they understand things like I do and taking the time to do that. And
mm,
typically my listing appointments run about an hour and 15 minutes. And then I never want to leave them just at the end of the evening or day having a question, because you sit there and you go through this and you're going to have some questions. Call me. Be glad
mhm.
to clarify anything for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you find new clients?
I'll have a lot of corporate clients like UpNest
Mm,
that find me, that I do a lot of transactions, have a lot of great reviews, all 5-star, and Google, obviously Google ads, things like that. And between the 5, 6, 7 companies in Google, that I work with, along with relocation companies, I'm pretty busy.
Hmm. Good. Let's talk about your team a little bit. How did you find the various people on your team, and kind of how do you structure that?
Well, that's a good question. Um, so, as a broker, you go through buyer agents. People, get into it for a lot of reasons, and some stay and some go. But my daughter, who's in Vista, she's a real estate agent,
Hmm.
and our son, who's the oldest, he's 29, he's also in real estate.
There
And
you go.
uh, a lot of our friends over the years, gosh, we're talking 17 years, has seen our success and how we do things, and actually have gotten a real estate license. So Mike and Jeff and people that are my buyer agents have come to me over the years, and I'm very selective because I hand train everybody. All the mistakes I've made, all the things that I've done wrong, all the things I've done right, I want to make sure and communicate that to them. So I grew that team over the last 15 years, and being very selective. Obviously, my kids, they have a right in. I mean, obviously, they're going to be in the business because they do a great job, and I want to make sure that I convey all the things that we do to them, and
Yeah.
that makes them, so they can be successful. I think every parent, just speaking in general, wants their kids to be successful. So they saw actually the lifestyle that me and Kelly, my wife, have, and they've kind of grabbed onto that and said, you know what, I want kind of a lifestyle like that. And because the 9 to 5 job, we're above 9 to 5. We're like, doctors on call, but we answer the phone, pick up, and answer questions, and we do a good job at that. And I think that's important to grow a team, is making sure that everybody communicates morning, noon, and night about things, and no one's left in the dark. And over the years, our team has become our team.
That's great. And that's so interesting that your kids uh, followed in your footsteps. Did you have to push them at all, or were they just like, "Hey, this looks great. Dad is making this look like such a good opportunity."
I left it up to them.
Yeah.
Did no pushing. For instance, our daughter, she went to college for a little while, played a little volleyball, and then gravitated like, I don't see anything other than what I'm doing now. All my friends are going to college and getting communication degrees and business degrees, and some have become real estate agents in her
Mhm.
case. And she's like, why do I need to do that? I'm going to go straight into real estate. So she got her license, I think, at 19, and she's
Mhm.
25.
Wow.
Our son, our oldest, he got his license at 18, 19. I just told him, hey, you should go out and get this just in case, if you ever want to do something in real estate, you have a license to do it. And you wouldn't have to pay someone else a commission to do it. And they went and took their tests, and off they went. And then over the years, they're like, you know what? I kind of like this.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
that's what's happened. Now our youngest, there's no way he's going to become a real estate agent because I'm done training people. That's the age of training. So he's on his own, but he's doing fine in college, so he'll be good.
That's funny. I'm sure he is. I got a degree in history and political science, which contributed absolutely nothing to my eventual career. So I think there's a good life lesson in here somewhere.
Well,
um,
yeah, it's called student loans. No one wants to go to college and have student loans if you're not going to go in the industry that you're going to go into. That's the tough part, and a lot of people do that. And,
Tons of people. Yeah, I've got tons and tons of friends with student loans now who anyway.
yeah, well, we run across people all the time when we, get their loan approvals, and they have $200,000 and $300,000 in debt, and that's a
Yeah,
really tough, thing to overcome with applying for a loan. So
sure.
didn't want that
Sure.
to happen to us.
Um, Talking about the houses that you've worked with, do you have a particularly strange house, like the strangest house you've ever worked with?
Oh yeah, Jeff. Oh, and it's not a laughing matter. I don't know why I laughed, but I will tell you, we had a murder suicide house,
Oh, goodness.
and I'll tell you, you go by that house and inside that house at night, which I did, and I had to
Sure,
do. It makes the hair stand up on your neck.
I bet.
And yeah, I don't think I'd probably do another one of those. And I took the listing and I did not know that, but it was just and then I got the details of it and I'm like, why did you tell me that? Now I'm freaked out, and I've gone in the house a couple times by myself, and I'll tell you, I thought twice about listening for things. I was very hypersensitive and
Sure.
not fun. But that was my strangest one.
Is that something you had to like disclose to buyers?
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
How did you do that?
Right up front. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want people to understand because that's not okay not to disclose. You always disclose everything that you know, even if it's beyond the time frames or whatever. You should disclose it because it's always going to come back.
Yeah. Was there anybody who you told that to and they just threw up their hands and say, never mind, not
Oh
interested?
yeah, many,
Yeah.
many.
The people who did wind up getting it, were they just not bothered by it or what
Not
happened?
bothered at all.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, people are different, right?
Good seance house, I guess, if you're into that kind of.
Hmm. Oh
Wow.
gosh, yeah, I won't go there.
No, that's pretty terrifying. Um, eh, let's talk about something that you're probably sick of talking about, which is COVID. Um, how did COVID change the way that you did your job in the past couple of years?
Well, when COVID came out, it's a real thing, and my heart's and my heart goes out to the people that lost loved ones in COVID. It just sucks. But
Mhm.
everybody thought in real estate that it's going to be the opposite. Like, oh my gosh, this a couple of years ago, I remember in February, it was like, wow, what's going to happen when it came out of 2020?
Mhm.
Like, going, what's going to happen? And I thought things are just going to totally be dead. And the opposite happened. I got more calls, more leads, people wanting to sell. And I'm like, what's going on? Because realize, when people, when COVID came out, they're like, oh, wow, they don't know what to think of this disease, how it's going to affect everybody. So if you wanted to sell your home and want strangers in your house, they really wanted to sell. Like, wow, it was, and then it became a supply and demand thing.
Mhm.
Um, some of the things that changed with COVID is people wanted to sell. A lot more people wanted to sell, which was really surprising
Yeah.
and and honestly overwhelming at times. We were carrying like 40, 50, 60 listings at a time, and it was crazy for us. And I didn't expect that. I expected the opposite. And then all the forms that you had to fill out, those kind of things, every time a buyer went in to see a home, they had to have a COVID form and they have to have it signed. So then you have to have DocuSign. So people that were older sometimes struggled with that because they didn't, know how to do DocuSign. And it was a tough time. It really changed the whole industry because people, instead of looking at 20 homes, were looking at five and buying one because they didn't want
Mhm.
to go through a bunch of houses. So that kind of led into like, as a listing, you want to make sure that it looks perfect because if it didn't look perfect, people wouldn't come up, wouldn't actually want to go to the house. If it looked terrible, they were like next, next, and they'd whittle it down to top three or five and buy one because they didn't want
Right.
to go through a lot of houses. So COVID changed that as well. So the online process really became, 3D, virtual, pictures, drone, became even more important during COVID.
Yeah, how much of that kind of high tech stuff do you do for your homes?
Well, we do pictures, obviously, and we have a stager that comes in before the pictures to make sure everything looks perfect.
Mhm.
If we don't have any furniture in the house, you can pay $2,000 a month $2,000, sorry, to begin with, as far as a stager goes, and then about 1,000 a month to do 4 rooms of staging, or you can go ahead and virtually stage the house, which we do all the time on vacant
Mhm.
homes. It's terrible to take pictures of a vacant home. It just does not give it any concept of anything as far as space goes. So we actually digitally stage all our vacant homes, and we have a ton of traffic doing that, which is great. Um, And what was the original question, Jeff? Sorry, I kind of lost.
No, you're all good. Do you do any drone or any?
Oh, absolutely. The drone we do the 3D tours.
Yeah, those
Something
are so fascinating. Those 3D tours are so cool, and we've been looking at renting homes. We are renting a home now, but when we were looking on Zillow for different homes, some of them had these 3D tours, and it made it so much easier to get a sense of what was going on.
yeah. Well, that's where the future is going, Jeff, for sure. Is how do we, the biggest issue I think is when people go and they see it on the 3D, they're always thinking, like, well, what are the neighbors like? What's it around the area? Are people wrenching on cars out front of their house all night, or is it a great neighborhood? And that's the next phase of real estate. How do we take the feel, the touch, the smell of what's going on around you and bring it into that house and available to people to see? That's the tough part.
Hmm.
And until we can do that, the sight unseen buying, which we've done a lot this year with COVID, virtual FaceTime. I'm coming from Guam, I'm coming out from Hawaii, I'm coming out from here. I need to buy something because I'm not going to move twice. Um, that whole neighborhood thing is done by FaceTime currently, but we'll eventually in the real estate world incorporate that into some type of 3D or something virtual thing that will help people understand the neighborhood and the people around them and all that stuff so they can feel more comfortable buying, because there's always that question: what's the neighborhood like? What's my next door neighbor? What's how high is the fence? Is it
Hmm.
private? Is it not? Those are some of the struggles we have. um,
Yeah, this trend of speed buying is crazy to me. Me and my wife take forever to make decisions. And just the idea that someone could walk into a house once, look around for an hour, and then say, we need to buy this now, or else somebody else is going to buy it, and then live in that house for 20, 30, 40 years is nuts to me. I cannot wrap my head around it.
yeah,
Um,
it's tough for some
yeah.
and easy for others, and everybody's different. So there
Tough
you
for
go,
us.
right?
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, my wife and I are looking to buy a house. So we actually moved up from the Bay Area a couple of months ago. We were in the Bay Area, before COVID, vaguely looking at houses. COVID hit, all the things that you were talking about happened. Prices started going up. We moved up here. We're obviously a lot cheaper. We're renting a house. What's your advice to us? Like, if you had a crystal ball, if you could look into the future of real estate in America, do you
Hmm.
think we should hurry buy a house now? Prices are only going to go up. Do you think we should wait? Prices are going to stabilize or go down? What do you think is going to happen?
Crystal ball. Okay, so there's a couple things that we need to look at when we talk about the future of real estate. First of all, is this a long-term thing? Because if it's a long-term thing, I'm going to be in this home 10 years. Well, interest rates will matter more than the price of the home
Hmm.
overall on what you pay for the home. So if you're thinking I'm going to be here 10 years, then it's a great time to start buying. You're going to see more and more inventory come on the market from the forbearances that have happened. And what that means is those people that have not made a mortgage payment in 12, 18 months um, due to COVID or lost a job, those are going to be coming on the market because they can't refi. And if the banks aren't willing to work with them as far as restructuring their loan, they're going to have no choice but to sell. That's their worst case scenario. I remember the short sale days, where
Hmm.
people were upside down two, three, $400,000, and they had to sell and ask forgiveness. Well, this is not such a bad market. The worst that's going to happen is people are going to have to sell. It's going to bring more inventory to the market, and it's going to stabilize the market a little bit. That's my crystal ball. Will prices go up? Well, I don't think they're going to be going up. I think they're going to stabilize, and everybody that we've done business with over the last couple months, we've gotten a lot of pushback on removing the appraisal contingency, which means that, hey, whatever the appraisal comes in at, if it comes in short, we're going to pay the difference. And that's the first indicator to me that we're getting a lot of pushback on that. So I'm getting the indication that I don't think people are going to be doing that a whole lot in the future.
Hmm.
So if you're buying right now and you have a long-term vision, it's a great time to buy. You're going to have more inventory first quarter next year, guaranteed. But if interest rates, I would keep an eye on those. That's kind of like, the wild card. If rates go up, because I'm sure you've seen that the Fed stopped or starting to trickle off the buying of bonds. And, they're just saying that, hey, we're going to kind of let this go for a while. They first said that they're not going to raise interest rates till 2023. Well, I think that'll probably change a little bit. And as long as rates remain somewhat stable, give or take maybe half a point. People are getting 2.5 right now. If they're at 3.5, I think that's still a great interest rate. I think it's a great time to buy.
Mhm.
But if you're thinking like you're coming in from the military and you're going to be there 3 years only, that's a different scenario because that short vision, you may be stuck. If prices do go down, stabilize to slightly down, you may be stuck in that home or having to rent it and you can't sell it for a while.
Mhm.
So something to consider for sure. So to recap, long-term vision, definitely buy. If
All
you got
right.
a short-term thing, 3, 4 years, maybe you're going to sell. Oh, that's a tough one. As long as you can handle, renting it, if prices were to go down slightly, and for some reason you were upside down a little bit, then that's something you got to consider for yourself. And if you're okay paying the mortgage or having renters in there, so
Gotcha.
that's my opinion.
That's a great opinion. Well, I think we'll have to see how the Seattle winter treats us before we make any decisions as to buying long term up here.
Well, you're
Uh,
definitely going to have more inventory. I think. I think
yeah.
that's going to really be helpful because the only thing that could happen, Jeff, is that you have what they call panic selling. I'm sure
Mhm.
you've heard the term. So I had a guy who was called by a bank saying, "Hey, you owe $26,000, and if you don't actually pay this note right or pay this off, and we're going to start foreclosure proceedings, and we'll be all foreclosed on your house in a month." Well, that's not true. They were like strong arming some people, which I think will happen first quarter. So you might see some people going, "Oh my gosh, these people say they're going to foreclose next month." Well, in
Mhm.
California, if you start from day one, it's going to be 120 days before you foreclose on a property. So with that in mind, people might go, "Okay, just reduce it. Just reduce it 20 grand. I gotta sell this." So if that happens, we could see a little trend going down a little bit. But here's the key to everything, I believe, just from tagging on what I just said. I believe that if we have a trickle of homes come out, everything will be fine with the forbearances. But if
Mhm.
the forbearances come out in a flood, then that will lead the market a little bit more slightly down than what we anticipated. So that's the key to Pandora's box, is that alone.
Interesting stuff. I've never heard that before. That's very interesting. Um, I guess that leads smoothly into my final question here, which is what's the future for you? And how do these different real estate trends, how do you think they're going to affect what you do?
Well, that's a good question. It'll depend on the trends, but I think more people are going to be wanting to sell because they are afraid that there's going to be some proverbial crash, and that there's not going to be a crash.
Mhm.
Slightly down is not a crash. What we saw in '08, '09, that was terrible. But there's not going to be a real estate crash. There's just too many great loans out there from 2010 that were originated that are full doc loans. There's no crisis or anything.
Mhm.
But we will see, something to the effect of more people wanting to list their property, more time on market. Instead of a week with 5 offers, you might see 3 weeks, a month for a couple offers. And that'll
Mhm.
be coming into effect because of more people putting their home on the market. And if that happens, if a lot of people do it, like I said, could be a little bit more of a punch in the gut than what we anticipated. So there's a lot of unknowns out there. Every day is a new day, but understanding the markets that we're in is key to people's success out there, and realizing what we're going through before we go through it.
That's great stuff. And you're on the record now for all of this.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. I know. Everybody's got their opinion though, right?
Yeah. No, and it's I think it's a good one. Um, All right. Well, any final words of wisdom you want to leave us with here?
I think we covered a lot today, Jeff. I'm absolutely good. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it's been very helpful, very informative. Thanks so much for talking to me today, and have a good rest of your day. Okay.
You too, Jeff. Thanks again.
Have a good one.